and, elicit some dialogue about who we can become as a community. So Emily put together a couple slide decks to just get us started. And feel free to either, participate with camera on, camera off, chat box, words, sign language, anything else that you might use to communicate. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So hopefully we can be a little bit engaged today. Emily, you want to go to the next one?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So today, like I said, we'll talk a little bit about our history, but also get into some of the things that you have all said through the surveys that you fill out at the end of each Brainstorm Live. And then again, let's do some forward-thinking brainstorming. You want to go to that next one?
Yeah. And this is our survey review, the winner of our logo survey.
Yeah, well, we should have done a drum roll, right?
I know, it's kind of...
Yeah, so I think this is a perfect transition. You all voted on a new logo options that we had. Kate is a supporter, it looks like. And we thought it was neat just to kind of look at the evolution of how logos have been created throughout our history. And this logo is meant to be a living, breathing thing too. So if we have any artists in the room or things you want to add or change, Catherine, you have full freedom. I always like original pieces rather than those ones that we create on the free things online. So feel free to jump in with some creativity, anyone. And the next one. I do want to talk just about and Emily's going to jump in with some figures. So I guess it was back the American Counseling Association conference in 2017. There was a group of us sitting around the table. And as we do at conferences, we sit around tables and we pontificate about random things, and we dream and we gripe and we think about how we're going to, heal the world. And one of the common barriers we kept finding was, we come together at conferences and we do this. We listen to various breakout sessions that may be more or less related to neuroscience, but what we were missing was this ongoing community of connection and bridging disciplines together, because we know that's really important, especially in neuroscience. So some early students and myself and a few colleagues from around the country said, well, we're going to do this monthly and we're just going to see what happens. So our first Brainstorm Live was in May 2017. So I think Emily gave us a birthday candle there that says we're a little over 4 years old. So Emily, go ahead and jump in.
Thank you. So just looking at some highlights in our 4 years, we've held 42 Brainstorm Live sessions, and we've seen an increase of 500 plus members on our listservs. So that is a huge increase in our community. I think I was looking back at in 2017, it was just under 200. So that's really an expansive growth that we're seeing. And with our scholarly sources read, as we know, when we have people come in, present their research, they also have some articles for us to read as well and discuss. And that just sort of shows a numerical representation of that. And then we've also established 3 different social media platforms. So we have Facebook, which has, I think, the oldest social site that we've been using. And then we started to transition over to YouTube for our Brainstorm Live recordings, which I think is a great way to sort of expand into the broader world of community people interested in neuroscience. We're really getting a reach there with the audience. And also Instagram, which is, I think, the newest one, which I'm just using for just brief overviews of the live sessions, and also just to sort of reach out to other potential people who might be interested through that platform as well. And I have on the last slide, if you're interested, I have all of our social media information listed.
Emily's much better at that world than I am. And I think that there's, as she talks about some of the methods of connection, the goal was always this wouldn't be traditional, like, one-way communication, dissemination of knowledge. You come and you sit in a seat and you listen and then you leave. leave. But although that's how you can use it, I do hope we'll continue to build the community aspect. And I think the methods of engagement and communication, we're all super busy. So um, always looking forward to feedback about, is a listserv the best idea? Is the social media outlet the best idea? Because right now there's about 4 that don't really get used that often. So just continuing to think through what's the best method to stay connected in between our monthly live sessions.
Yes, and please feel free to share your feedback with that, shout it out, or would love to hear what you guys think. So for our mission, it's really just providing a network of collaborative scholars, practitioners, neuroscience researchers, just to share sort of our expertise and learn and grow from each other, with the goal of just translating this body of neuroscience research into, a language that is accessible and understandable for us in practice, and also for clients who we're working with, for us to understand the brain better, and just, making that body of literature more accessible to us and everyone out there. So, yeah, this is a space for collaborative support. We have a place to discuss, to collaborate, you know, bounce ideas off for research, potential research projects, just openly scholarly discussion, and yeah, we learn and grow with each other.
Yeah. Early on, we called those brainstorm babies, and that was the ideas that were generated from brainstorm conversations, and that turned into future products. And Dr. Rayson Miller and I, we learned and talked about neuroeducation at Brainstorm Live, and then that turned into a book about neuroeducation. So, I hope that as you all get inspired, you'll think about, what do you want to do with that inspiration? And whether it's just on the individual level in your day-to-day lives and your day-to-day practices, that's great. If you want to get involved in some more formalized research endeavors, presenting at conferences, writing papers, writing blogs, anything that you might want to disseminate about your own expertise. I think Emily said that idea about sharing our collective expertise, no matter how big, large, small, whatever size that expertise might be. I think bringing that lived experience is something that's been really valuable for me to hear over the past 4 years. Laura, I think, are you using that hand raise for a reason?
Yes, I am. And I haven't been on camera because I'm eating my lunch. But I just want to say that this is sort of a dream come true for me, as is, there's so many aspects of a brainstorm that I selfishly, it's like, I'm so grateful. And one of the things is, and Dr. Beeson, I think I may have shared this with you a little bit along the way, but I am, I'm not in an academic setting at all. And yet, I kind of have this research wish list, that come from just noticing life, noticing from my practice, and just from being awake, and and I don't have anything to do with it. I can't. I don't know what to do with it because I'm not in grad school. So to me, this whole idea of this collaboration. By the way, I got dressed up for this meeting. The idea that, just so you know, that for those of us who are outside of the academic world, this is such a lifeline to keep us, to keep educating ourselves and so on, but also just to keep us connected in a really lively way. And I just want to thank you for that. And that's why I support you guys so much, as you know. But the idea of, as I was just saying, like, oh boy, maybe there will be a bulletin board for me to tack up my research idea wish list someday.
So Emily's going to be taking down some notes about that. Thanks for the kind words, Laura. You've been here for quite a while. I always am looking forward to seeing your face. And we don't always see everyone's face, but I see the familiar names that pop through. So I thank you for sharing that, Laura, and keep the ideas coming. I also, I might also just say, if you're like, wow, there's this topic that I can't find anything on, send an email, post that on the listserv, and we'll do our best to try to reach out to an author that's doing some work there, and we'll invite them. And I think Emily will share some of this in a minute about, like, with feedback, there's always two sides. Like, on one side, it would be nice to have similar topical things that we build upon week by week. And it's hard to do that sometimes, but we try our best. The other side of that is, maybe there's benefits to just saying, hey, I want to learn about this. Hey, I want to learn about this. So we're trying to meet somewhere in the middle where we can develop some topical series and then also continue to be responsive to y'all's interest. So if you want to learn more about X or Y, just let us know, and we'll try to find a researcher doing it, and we'll reach out, and they will either tell us yes or no. They will either tell us that they're glad to do it, or they'll require $10,000 for an hour of their time, and we'll say that we probably can't do that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that piece in a moment. So Emily, sorry to take over.
No worries. Thank you for saying that, Laura. Yeah, definitely. Just in a few minutes, I'd love to brainstorm just what sort of that would look like in practice. Like, maybe it would be an additional just a time where we can meet to just talk about some of the research that that's on your bulletin board. But we can talk about that in a moment. But thank you for saying that. So, looking at our community at a glance, I wasn't sure what made up the majority of our audience members, but it seems that it is practitioners. So counselors, licensed counselors, or just and then the rest is students, so masters, and then there's some counselor educators as well. So the bulk of our audience are practitioners. So I was thinking, when just asking, there's going to be time for discussion later, but just sort of asking, what is the main thing that you're getting out of this? What would you like to see, and how can we be better for you, and how can we give you things for your practice?
And even though we come from the counseling background, I mean, it's been great to learn alongside of social workers, psychologists, and, hard neuroscientists too, and I think that's been one of my greatest takeaways. And I think someone had mentioned this in the chat box too, is sometimes researchers don't get to connect with practitioners, and, the vice versa. So I think it's been really nice for us to provide some real world feedback back to people who are in labs and who are doing research and thinking about, what does this actually look like in a person's life and in their career. So, we did, even though it kind of started with a focus on counselors, I don't want it to be a focus on counselors. It is, all helping professionals, all citizens of the world, as we're just trying to kind of promote the health and well-being of folks. We just happen to come alongside of this similar topic of neuroscience.
Right. And yeah, just to segue to, it's just cannot be overstated how much of your voice helps us grow as a community, and how much we need your feedback to develop and learn, because we are a collaborative community, growing together, learning together. So to go through, I went through some of the CE surveys that have been sent out during each session, and just looked through some of the comments that were received. I love this one. I'm too excited and too full of new information to even write. There's just a lot of great notes here. It's just very enthusiastic and motivating. The speakers have been so amazing and have really sparked an interest, which is great. We love sparking, and brainstorm, sparking ideas, interests. There's some more. I love to see that this presentation revealed so much that is relevant and compelling professionally and personally, which is all unexpected. Almost didn't attend. So happy I did. That is so great. So these words of encouragement are just so valued and appreciated. It helps us see like how far, what we're doing and our purpose and our mission, and just to see that it's making this impact is really substantial and really great. And then to sort of just as a metric observation of the surveys, I know that we ask, on a scale of 1 to 5, rank the content, the quality, and we did everything got above a 4.5. The lowest two were the content and the program materials, which we'll leave just for open discussion. If there's, an area of neuroscience that you would like to see more in the future, or just any particular, like, again, please reach out or suggest anything. But yeah, it seems that the online platform room and accommodations received our highest score. But as I was going through some of the comments from, I think, this year, there were a few suggestions that, having the presentation, like questions, get sort of interrupted, or just as the presentation is going. Some people had made a comment that they would just rather have the presentation um, follow through with like uninterrupted and then have questions at the end. So if any of you have any feedback or suggestions about that, please let us know. But that sort of was what I saw in there.
And I think that's also like one of those good news, not so good news things is we try to leave it open for the featured authors to kind of decide how they want to structure. Some people really like formal slide decks, and I'm going to get through my slide deck and then I'll ask questions and answers. And some people really like informal dialogue, and some people like a blend. And I imagine it's that way for y'all too, is, some people just want to sit and listen on their lunch break, and that's good enough. And some people want to engage in the dialogue, and that probably varies too. So I think that we'll be looking for that feedback all the time of just, do we want to go more formal or less formal? And I think that that'll be something that evolves over time. And I don't know that we have to do it the same way all the time, but maybe we do. So I think you all will help us craft what the next iteration, the next chapter continues to look like. And Emily will be thinking about ways to collect that feedback from you soon.
Right. And I did see a few people had suggested to just having the PowerPoint presentations available just to look at, to write notes down. So I will ask some of the speakers if they would mind just sharing that, so I can provide that for the audience if you want to look back for future reference. So future direction, and then also opening it up to all of us to sort of have a dialogue. We're going to continue our engagement with the neuroscience literature, reaching out to potential speakers to come. If, please share your ideas and what you would like to see. And then collaborate and work together. As Laura was saying, I would love to see, I was speaking to Dr. Leeson about this actually before our meeting now, about having like a sort of just, I don't know if it would be a separate meeting, but just like have more of like a space to discuss our research ideas, and like a writing circle. Is anything to share, like the ideas we're having that might not have a space in the live session format block? And yeah, I remember at the beginning of the year, I heard a suggestion also about neuroscience informed case consultations. And I'm not sure how this would look in practice, which is why I would like to open it up to what you may all think. Just taking, more case examples that you see in your practice and using them as a just sort of way to conceptualize some of the concepts that we're talking about into a real example. And
let's hold off on that one for a moment. You want to go ahead and stop sharing just for a second? I think on that last moment, I think that's also not all research is human subjects research that's approved by an IRB. You all are researchers every day. You have ideas and hypotheses, and you work with people, and you conduct research implicitly or explicitly. And I think part of what Brainstorm Lab can be too is, you might not think about giving a case presentation like you did in grad school in your internship courses or something, but why not? And I think we can find a space for that if that's something that would be valuable. Of, I want to present on a case and I want to talk about how I use neuroscience-informed thinking to deliver interventions, deliver treatment, whatever. Or just, I have no idea how I would do it and I would like some feedback from folks. So there can be that sort of peer consultation flavor to this if you want. As Emily said, not really sure if that usurps this time or it becomes another time or it's something that y'all do on the listserv. I've been a part of a couple of neurofeedback listservs in the past that have been really great for folks to just, here's what I'm seeing in this EEG and I can't make sense out of it. I know we're not all neurofeedback practitioners, but here's what I'm seeing and I have no idea what might be going on in this person's nervous system. I don't know how I might deliver neuroeducation. I don't know how I might use somatic experiencing. I think that those are some techniques we've seen presented upon, but there hasn't been that opportunity to, get feedback as we implement things and as we continue to try. So I don't expect this being a formal supervision kind of relationship. I don't know that we want to go there, but maybe, who knows? I think some peer consultation is always useful for folks, especially around new practice areas that we're considering.
Yeah, going back, sorry to put you on the spot, Laura. What sort of, how would you envision, would you be interested in having sort of an open space that is separate from the meeting time to discuss your research interests and just these ideas you're having? Like, what kind of things do you, would you consider?
I'm saying to stall for a moment. I guess I would be open to whatever works for you guys, because I think that I have more flexibility personally, especially now that I'm continuing to do most of my work from this chair in my house. I have, I do have a lot of flexibility about stuff like that. The idea that we would have a time or a place or an opportunity to share about what we're curious about or what we would like to see some research on is really very exciting to me. And by the way, I hope we never get so formal that we lose that incredible opportunity to interact with our presenters. I mean, that is just such a gift to me, because, as it's just, I don't know, it's different to be asking questions in real time and then hearing the answers and, having the nuance of nonverbal communication happening. That also, Emily and Eric, I had a question, and I wonder about funding for you guys. I mean, I know that we've seen that you've given us the opportunity to make a donation, and I wonder about how critical that is to Brainstorm expanding and moving forward. The whole funding issue, I'm just curious about it. Is Brainstorm vulnerable to not being funded? Or if one of these days Dr. Beeson and Emily wake up and say, I've had enough of this and I'm done, I want to take up oil painting instead or something,
want to have Bob Ross hours on my Fridays, my fourth Fridays, right?
But I'm kind of serious about it, because I do think that, I spent, my first career was, I hate to admit it in a way, but I was in advertising, okay? So I did the work of the devil, which is why I went into counseling to try to kind of even out the ethics of my life. But, and that's a joke, but I think that there are opportunities for offerings that may be income producing, or tiers, of, like some of the things you were talking about. There, I don't know, just a thought. But if I wonder how you guys are doing, and if you need money, and if you do, why, and all that.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura. I mean, that was always a value in the beginning, and I can just speak to history and values of, like, we wanted this to be a free community. We didn't want this to be a transactional kind of process where you give us money, we give you education. Like, we didn't want that sort of transactional kind of relationship. And I think, Laura, you highlighted the nature of the information exchange that you really value. And I have to echo that the after hours are my favorite time. And I know people can't stick around and we don't give CEs for them, but like, that's just my favorite time every month, is just, how did you feel about that presentation? Like, how did that speak to you? And that's just something I think, if I were to cast a vision of what I hope professional development in all helping professions would look like, it would require some of that dynamic exchange rather than the passive, I listen to you talk for 45 minutes and that's going to make me a better practitioner. Like, I hope we can engage and listen. And I think that's still part of the vision. And I echo the idea of not getting too formal, but still maybe doing things okay. Doing things with some degree of professionalism. I think we toe that line okay. And that brings into this idea about, like, how does this exist? And some of you probably don't know that because we don't talk about it very often. I am a faculty person at counseling at Northwestern, and I get a tiny little thing to hire an emerging scholar. And that emerging scholar gets a tiny, tiny little stipend every quarter to put in a certain number of hours. And it is, I will say, a tiny, tiny stipend. Emily may smile to that because she is in that role right now. So it's really been a labor of love, really. And we've had quite a few Brainstorm Lab coordinators that have come from our Northwestern counseling program, but that's the only real funding. And we were encouraged I don't even know, maybe a year ago, to at least give the opportunity for donation. So we provided that opportunity there. We played around with this idea in discussions over time about, is it worthwhile to charge or something like that? And I think we've always come back to the idea that we don't want that to happen. Maybe it will at some point, but I hope it doesn't get to that point. So at least right now, if you want to consider it in a certain way, call it pay as you can continuing education. Anybody have pay as you can restaurants in your community? Anyone? Well, a pay as you can restaurant is, you go in and there's a recommended price, but you pay what you can. If you got X dollars, you put that down. If you can pay more and pay for the next person to come through, you do that. Some people put money up on a bulletin board, so folks that come through that can't afford it will have the opportunity. So that feels okay to me. I don't want to beg for money. I don't want to ask for money. And any money would just go back to the community, whether it be through research or funding a coordinator position or something like that. But Laura, you give me the strength to even have the conversation about money. So I appreciate you for throwing that out.
I really am with you about that. There is something really different about not, it's just, excuse the expression, psychologically different about having it the way it is. I also, something that happens that I think is worth noting is in that after part, the people, at least in my experience, the people who are talking to each other, they're really contributing a lot. I mean, it enriches so much, and so many of the presenters have said that wow, I am really happy I stuck around, because I do think that it enhances and kind of fleshes out a lot of the work that they do. So I think it's good on both ends. I also think that there still may be some, if there were a reason for it, to have a brainstorm bake sale, there might be a reason for it, but I'm happy to know that that Brainstorm is healthy and that it will just keep going.
Yeah. We need one of those. What do they do in communities when they want to build a pool? They have that sign with the thermometer, right? You work towards it together, that kind of thing. So if there's ever a risk, or who knows, if I go into another position, another location, hopefully someone will continue it. And I think that's something I would highlight as well. Is early on, there was kind of a steering committee, a little team that got together, and Emily and I talk about that a lot. And I think there would be value to reinstituting that if there were members of the community that wanted to participate in a more leadership-oriented kind of direction, to help have these conversations, to recruit speakers, and to think about what those needs are and what those gaps are. So I think that's something to keep on your all's radar as members of the community is, would you like this to be a part of your own your own sort of volunteerism, and kind of being an even more active contributor to the leadership of Brainstorm. Sometimes we disappear and we go on places and things like that. So it'd be nice if it could continue. Kate says we could also work towards big ticket items. I joked around about $10,000 for an hour. That's not, I have heard those things before. So that's why I kind of made that joke. But, I think that's an option. I think sometimes in agencies can pull together and say, we want to have a training from this person. So as an agency, we're going to come together and we're going to pitch in and we're going to bring this person in. So part of it's maybe spreading the cost out. So, what would it be like if we approached, I don't know, Peter Levine and said, we want to do an in-house somatic experiencing training or something like that. Maybe we would have to work towards that, and maybe we could all chip in. That's an idea, Kate. We can keep that one on the radar. What else is coming up for y'all as you all listen to us ramble on a bit?
This is my first meeting with you guys, and I signed up to be with you a year ago. But I'm so busy this year. It's been weird. So I'm super happy this is an informal town hall. So thank you for hosting it. And I was just looking at your website too, which is really great. So many resources on there. I wondered if somebody has done this and it's already on there, but I'm noticing after a year of my studies also at Northwestern, there's so much vocabulary and acronyms that are incredibly confusing, and especially in neuroscience. I wondered if there was a glossary section that could be born.
Writing that down, that is a great, yes, that just sparked off so
Yeah,
many.
Yeah, like glossary, acronym thingy. This is good.
Yes, especially I'm all about, as I said earlier, just translating the language into just our understanding. And that's a great, thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, and you could like link it to the already awesome talks you have on there too, because there's so much on there. So thank you for doing all you do.
Thank you.
And I think that's part of maybe some knowledge share too. Like, if you all have resources that you want us to post, like, and to keep that on the repository, we'll call it our bulletin board, right? Or it won't only be a research idea bulletin board, it'll also be a resource bulletin board too. Because I know, for instance, the International Society of Neurofeedback Research, they have a running reference list of all neurofeedback literature. So it doesn't make sense for us to replicate that. It makes sense for us to link that. And I imagine there are some glossaries that exist out there that perhaps, Emily, we can do a little searching, or if you all know of any, you can drop us a line, and we can see that. I think that's a wonderful idea.
I have a question building off of what Catherine just said. So I know on YouTube, now are we using YouTube now? No.
We started. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's easy to download our recordings and sometimes it's not. For a long time, we couldn't download our recordings, and that's why we had to only use the link. Okay. Now, I think we'll be able to. I think we'll be able to keep downloading them and putting them on YouTube. Speaking of revenue generation, if it ever gets to the point where we have thousands and thousands of views, then there's some opportunities there. So I guess one ask we might have is share the crap out of those videos.
Right, and the reason I brought it up is because there are some really lively discussions underneath YouTube videos, and I could see that as, I don't know, just kind of an enhancing element of continuing the conversation about a particular presentation, maybe. I mean, I don't know exactly how it would work. Maybe Emily would have to have an extra job where she would have to be monitoring those. I don't know, but it's an opportunity, especially if there would have to be some rules. I'm just kind of free thinking here. When there are people who are not in the community, some of the comments can be not helpful, irrelevant, and we wouldn't want them. You know what I mean?
Right, like a moderator.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have to be maybe, like on Facebook, I know a lot of the groups I'm in, you have to ask to permission to join, and they sort of check you out, to make sure you're not one of the people who would do that. But anyway, that may be just a real easy way to have an additional a live communication about the presentations. I don't know.
Yeah, I love reading the comments and YouTube videos. So that would, if we do have a large discourse going down, I would definitely sort of take what they're saying and, if moderate, if necessary, if anything is sort of getting out of hand. But yeah, I do see what you're saying for just like a live. I feel like we have a lot of platforms of social media, so I don't know, if it's like growing one of those that we already have, or looking at what else is out there. Like, I do think there are some good interactions on. Which one would you say you use the most or interact with the most?
Well, I mean, for other parts of my life, like bird photography and stuff like that, it would be Instagram. But for videos, I think it would be YouTube, I guess. I mean, I know there's live Facebook. Do you guys do? I forget. you said this in the beginning today. What was that extra platform that you use?
Yeah, I mean, we can broadcast these Facebook Live. We've done a couple of them on Facebook Live. It's normally one of the things that happens on the back end is also kind of respecting our featured authors' positions. For instance, sometimes folks don't want us to record it for various reasons, so we respect that. Sometimes people don't want it to be presented live to Facebook or something like that. So we also navigate the author's wishes. Some really want us to password protect them, and they don't want it to be open access. So we do password protect some of them. So I think those are just things that I want to just throw out there that we have to keep in mind. We'll get better at some of the communication and engagement things. None of the social media outlets are really active, which is why maybe they're not really active, because we haven't done a good job of making those that way. And I think that's part of, perhaps, Laura, just the natural inherent limitations of it being a labor of love. And if it was Google, if we had that funding, it'd be top notch. Well, I don't know why.
Yeah, everybody's busy, and it's really gets to be kind of a luxury to be participating in some of these things, and at a certain point, is it listed? Are all of your social media platforms listed on the website or something?
Just Facebook is right now. So Emily, that's a piece of feedback that you could work on, just making sure all of those are listed there.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the YouTube conversation is a nice one. So for instance, let me just go back and I'll just share some things. So the first one that we posted on YouTube had 28 views. The second one had 84. The third had 204, and the fourth had 470. So I think you all can see that trend upwards there. And there are a couple comments in there. They're not engaging with one another. It's just normally a sign of appreciation.